Your presence isn't there, God, then I don't want any part. I don't want to take a step, God, without you being there. And I pray that things that are talked about today, God, I believe that healing will even come through this conversation, God. Not just for me, but for others as well. Because in your presence, there's fullness of joy, God, and in your presence, there's freedom. In Jesus' name.
I am absolutely honored to be sitting next to my dear friend Sammie. She has one of the most incredible stories of just strength and triumph that I've ever heard, and people need to hear what you've done with your life.
I grew up in a single parent home with 3 siblings. We moved around a lot. There wasn't a whole lot of consistency. And when I was in high school, I became friends with someone, and he invited me to his parents' church. What initially started as a simple invite really changed the course of my life, and was here every single day, and it became really a home for me. And right after high school, I was hired on staff and just kind of hit the ground running. And I just, in my mind, thought, this is it. I've made it. I'm leading worship for thousands of people at a young age. I thought life was good, but without realizing it, I almost began to use the platform as a hiding place. I got to a place where I was even scared to talk about things, because what if these people knew what I was struggling with? John actually came out to speak at our church, and John's message was about good or God. And a couple months later, I started reading it. And what I didn't know was just a few short weeks after I started reading it, God really just simply was going to expose things in my life that I wasn't planning on, and my whole life kind of just flipped. During that time, I wasn't leading worship. I think it was about 9 months where I didn't step foot on a platform. And it was the message and the foundational truths that were in that book that completely shifted the way that I pursue God. And I got to a place where I was like, if I never got the opportunity to step foot on a platform ever again, would I be okay? And I had to get to that place where I'd be completely fine with that, because my relationship with God doesn't just sustain a calling in what I'm doing, but what I'm doing is just a product. Walking through that, I thought I was walking through the worst season of my entire life, and looking back, it was actually the most foundational, because little did I know, just a couple of years later, I was going to walk through really the most difficult year that I have ever walked through. In January of 2019, I had a headache, a migraine that had lasted for about a week. We just knew something was wrong, so I went to the doctor, and I was diagnosed with something called type 1 Chiari malformation. I was told that technically there's no cure for it, and the only form of treatment is to get brain surgery. I felt like I was getting in a groove again. It almost felt like another setback, and I was like, this doesn't make sense. We scheduled the surgery for March 14th of 2019, and a week before, Lisa actually came and spoke at our women's conference. She suggested, you should go out to Colorado before your surgery and hang out with Christian. And I was like, you know what, that's a great idea. And so bought a ticket, went out to Colorado the next day, and actually got to spend time at Messenger and meet the staff. And I remember the first day that I went in, y'all had a prayer time, and everybody actually took time and laid hands on me and prayed for me that I would be healed. And I'll never forget that. I was in the hospital for about 8 days, and about 3 weeks post-op, I had a complication that led me into an emergency surgery. What I thought was going to be a few days in the hospital, day fix and repair, it actually turned into about 2 weeks in the ICU. When I was in the ICU, I just had never felt so hopeless. There was a day that I was just laying in the bed, and every limb of mine was connected to something. I just knew if I had to get a third surgery, I didn't think I was going to make it. And I was reminded of this story in the Bible where it talks about Paul and Silas worshiping in their prison, and their chains fell off. I was by myself and just laying there sobbing. And I just began to sing. I just said, God, I need your presence to be here, and I need you to show up. And it was almost like something flipped in me. Later that day, my surgeon told me that a third surgery was required. And 2 days later, I had the third surgery, and it was completely successful. But even the months after the surgery and getting out of the hospital, and even still today, there was a point where, because of the complications that happened with my voice, I didn't know if I was ever going to be able to actually sing again. So the question that I was asking before was, if I never get on a platform again, will I be okay? But what if I was never able to physically use my voice again? Would I be okay? My answer is yes, because of the truths that I learned in Good or God. I know that my calling has absolutely nothing to do with what I do, but everything to do with who I am. And I want to carry an anointing on my life that can lead people to the presence of God, whether it's singing and leading people in worship, or whether it's through conversation, or maybe just praying for someone. There was one day that I decided to go back to the hospital. For some reason, I just felt it so strongly. And I went back and I walked back to the room that I was in for 2 weeks, the place that I said I'm never going back to. And it turns out that one of our team members that serves at the church was in that room fighting for his life. And I walk in and share with them, I said, yeah, actually, last week I was in this bed fighting for my life. And she said, a week ago? And I was able to, pull back and show her both of my scars and say, a week ago. And I told them the story about inviting the presence of God into that room and being able to do the exact same thing for a family that was then in that position was a confirmation in my life that that's what I want to do. It's not about a platform. It's simply having a relationship with the Lord, intimate enough to hear his voice. And so it's been a painfully beautiful process, and I'm so grateful for what I've walked through and what I'm walking through. And I don't even feel like I'm completely on the other side. Knowing that God is faithful, knowing that he is who he says that he is, and the things that I think are good in my life have no comparison to what he has for me. More than just John being a great author and this being a good book is the fact that these truths are instilled through you guys. Because I think that's just a testament to who God is. He goes above and beyond, and it's more than we could ever think or ask or imagine. And just you guys being who you are has painted that picture for me. And so thank you guys. Seriously.
Thank you for sharing your story, for living through example. And if you or anyone you know are going through a tough season or need really that foundational truth, please share this, please watch this. And thank you again, Sammie, for sharing. And we'll see you next time.